Welcome to HOA Busted. The board picked the wrong week to play games. I am a nurse in a busy clinic in Madison, Wisconsin, and I need my car ready at dawn because my shift starts before the city finishes plowing. That is why I am standing in my driveway at 6 in the morning, staring at Teresa Robinson, the Plowmark Park Homeowners Association Fines and Enforcement Coordinator, who is holding a clipboard and screaming that I sabotaged a city snowplow. She is wearing a pink-belted wool coat and gray earmuffs, and she has a portable thermal printer clipped to her belt that spits out violation notices on demand. I am in my red wool coat and red beanie, keys jingling on the carabiner at my belt, and I am trying very hard not to laugh because this is the third time this week she has shown up before sunrise to accuse me of something impossible. "You need to provide proof you did not move that plow berm," she shouts, jabbing a finger at the snowbank the city left at the end of my driveway. "The association has a right to inspect your property for compliance, and you are in violation of winter aesthetics under Section 4.9. "I did not move anything," I say, keeping my voice level. "The city plow left that berm when it came through at 4 this morning. You can call the streets department if you want." She clicks a pen 3 times in rapid frustration and pulls out her phone. "I have photographic evidence that this berm was not here yesterday, and the board voted to hold you responsible for any damage to common area drainage caused by unauthorized snow relocation." "There is no vote on record," I say, because I checked. I filed a public records request 2 weeks ago after she started this campaign, and the Plowmark Park HOA has not held a quorum meeting since October. Every fine notice she has issued since Thanksgiving is based on rules that were never actually adopted, and I have been quietly compiling proof while she digs herself deeper. She holds up a clear plastic evidence bag with a broken snow stake inside and shakes it at me. "This was found in the street after the plow came through," she says. "You placed unauthorized markers in the right-of-way, which is a violation of city code and a breach of Covenant Section 12. "That is a city marker," I say. "They put those out every year to mark hydrants. If it broke, that is not my problem." She clicks the pen again, and I can see her getting angrier. "You are going to provide a signed affidavit that you did not tamper with city equipment, or I will escalate this to the county and make sure you are fined for every single day that tarp is on your roof." The tarp is the real reason she is here. 10 days ago, an ice storm hit Madison and a tree branch punched through my roof above the bedroom. I called a roofer the same day, but every contractor in the city is booked solid through February, so I put up a heavy-duty tarp to stop the leak until someone can get out here. It is blue, it is tight, and it is completely legal under city code. But Teresa decided it is an eyesore, and she has been trying to force me to take it down ever since, even though removing it would let water destroy the interior. I pull out my phone and show her the work order from the roofing company. "This is temporary emergency repair," I say. "It is allowed under state law, and the city inspector already signed off on it." She barely glances at the screen. "I do not care what the city says," she snaps. "The Plowmark Park covenants require all exterior modifications to be pre-approved by the Architectural Review Committee, and you did not submit an application. That is a $500 fine, plus $50 per day until you remove it." "The covenants do not override state emergency repair statutes," I say, "and you are not the Architectural Committee. You are the fines coordinator." "I can make this a lean conversation in one email," she says, and her voice drops into a cold, satisfied tone that makes my stomach tighten. I nod like I am losing, because I want her to get comfortable. The more she escalates, the more documentation I collect, and the harder it will be for her to walk any of this back. My mental health has been fragile since the divorce last year, and this kind of harassment is exactly the thing that used to send me spiraling. But I am not going to let her win. I am going to fight this the right way, with records and witnesses and a timeline that proves every single violation notice she has issued is based on a fabrication. A mail carrier rounds the corner, struggling through the snowbank with a heavy bag, and Teresa turns to glare at her like she is trespassing. The carrier gives me a sympathetic look and keeps moving. I have to get to work, I say, and I turn toward my car. Teresa steps in front of me, blocking the driver's door. "You are not leaving until you sign an acknowledgement of violation," she says, pulling a pre-printed form from her clipboard. "This gives the board authority to enter your property for inspection and corrective action." "I am not signing anything," I say. "If you want to inspect my property, you can schedule it through the management company like the rules require." "The rules give me discretion in emergency enforcement situations," she says, clicking the pen 4 times fast. "And I am declaring this an emergency." "There is no emergency," I say. "You are making this up because you are mad that I did not take the tarp down when you told me to." Her face goes red, and she leans in close. "I will make an example out of you so everyone learns," she hisses. "You think you can ignore the covenants because you are new here, but I have been on this board for 6 years, and I know exactly how to make your life miserable." I take a breath and step around her, unlock my car and start the engine. She slaps the hood with her clipboard as I back out, and I see her snapping photos with her phone as I pull away. My hands are shaking on the wheel, and I can feel the anxiety rising in my chest. But I force myself to focus on the road. I cannot afford to lose this job because Teresa Robinson wants to play HOA tyrant. At the clinic, I tell my supervisor I might need to take a personal day later in the week for a legal issue, and she just nods. She has heard the HOA stories before. Half the staff lives in subdivisions with boards that pull the same garbage, and everyone knows the drill. Document everything, get a lawyer if you can afford one, and do not let them bully you into paying fines you do not owe. During my lunch break, I call my friend who works at the courthouse. Her name is Megan, and she is a clerk in the Civil Records Division. I explain the situation, the tarp, the fines, the fabricated votes, and she listens without interrupting. "You need to file a complaint with the management company," she says. "If the board is issuing fines without a quorum vote, that is a breach of fiduciary duty, and the management company can put a hold on enforcement. You also need to get copies of the meeting minutes going back at least a year, because if there is a pattern of this, you can use it to challenge the entire enforcement action." "I already requested the minutes," I say. "They sent me 3 pages that do not show any vote on winter rules or architectural standards." "Perfect," she says. "That is your smoking gun. Now you need to prove that Teresa knew the vote did not happen and did it anyway. If you can show intent, you can file for damages and get your fees refunded." "How do I prove intent?" I ask. "Get her on record," Megan says. "Email, text, voicemail, anything where she admits the rule was not approved or where she threatens you personally. Once you have that, you can take it to the board and force them to either discipline her or open themselves up to liability." If you are enjoying this story and want to hear more HOA nightmares, hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss the next one. I thank her and hang up, then spend the rest of my shift thinking about how to get Teresa to slip up. The problem is that she is smart. She knows how to stay just inside the line of plausible deniability, and she is careful about what she puts in writing. But she is also arrogant, and arrogance makes people careless. That night, I draft an email to the Plow Park HOA Management Company, laying out the timeline of violations and asking them to confirm whether any of the cited rules were voted on. I attach the minutes I received, highlight the missing votes, and request a formal hearing. I send it at 11 p.m. and copy Teresa on it, because I want her to know I am not backing down. She replies at 6 the next morning. The email is 2 sentences. "Your request is denied. All enforcement actions are final and subject to appeal only through binding arbitration as outlined in Section 19 of the Covenants." I forward the email to Megan and ask if that is legal. She calls me back 10 minutes later. "That is garbage," she says. Wisconsin law does not let HOAs force arbitration on covenant disputes without giving you a hearing first. She is trying to scare you into paying. Do not respond to her. Respond to the management company and tell them you are invoking your right to a hearing under state statute. I do exactly that, and I get an auto-reply saying the management company will respond within 5 business days. Meanwhile, Teresa shows up at my driveway again, this time with a clipboard and a man in a bright yellow vest who introduces himself as a contractor hired by the HOA to inspect the property for code compliance. You cannot come onto my property without my permission, I say, blocking the walkway. The covenants give us right of entry for compliance inspections, Teresa says, and she gestures to the contractor like he is supposed to intimidate me. We are documenting the damage your unauthorized snow removal caused to the common area drainage. There is no drainage on my lot, I say. This is a flat yard with a city storm drain in the street. You are making this up. The contractor looks uncomfortable and shifts his weight. He glances at Teresa, then at me, and I can tell he does not want to be part of this. I pull out my phone and start recording. I am documenting that you are attempting to enter my property without consent and without a valid inspection warrant, I say. If you step past this point, I will call the police and report trespassing. Teresa clicks her pen 5 times and glares at the contractor. Do your job, she snaps. I am not going on the property if he is recording, the contractor says, and he takes a step back. You did not tell me there was a dispute. There is no dispute, Teresa says, her voice rising. He is in violation, and we have the authority to inspect. The contractor shakes his head and walks back to his truck. Teresa watches him go, and I can see her jaw clenching. She turns back to me, and her expression is pure fury. You just cost the association $500 for a wasted site visit, she says. That is going on your account. Send me the invoice, I say. I will add it to the complaint. She clicks the pen one more time, then storms off. I watch her drive away, then I save the recording and send it to Megan with a note. She just tried to force an inspection with no warrant and a contractor who bailed when he saw I was recording. Is this enough for intent? Megan replies in under a minute. That is beautiful. Keep doing exactly what you are doing. The next escalation comes 3 days later. I get home from a night shift to find a bright orange parking violation sticker on my windshield. It says my vehicle is parked in violation of emergency snow route regulations and is subject to immediate tow. The problem is that my driveway is not part of an emergency snow route. I check the city map on my phone, and the nearest designated route is 2 blocks away. I peel off the sticker and take it inside, then call the non-emergency police line to ask if there is an active snow emergency. The dispatcher says no, the last one was lifted 4 days ago. I thank her and hang up, then I take a photo of the sticker and the city map and add it to my file. That night, Teresa sends a mass email to the entire Plow Park neighborhood with the subject line Winter Parking Enforcement Reminder. The email says that due to ongoing violations, the board is implementing enhanced enforcement during snow events, and any vehicle parked on the street or in a driveway that obstructs snow removal will be towed at owner expense. At the bottom, in bold, it says, this policy was approved by a majority vote of the board on November 15th and is effective immediately. I check the minutes I received. There is no meeting recorded for November 15th. There is no vote on parking enforcement. The entire email is a fabrication. I reply all with a single line, can you provide the meeting minutes from November 15th? I did not receive them in my records request. The email thread explodes. 4 neighbors reply asking the same question. 2 more say they did not know there was a vote. One neighbor, a guy named Carl who lives 3 doors down, replies with, I was at the November meeting and we only discussed snow removal vendor bids. There was no parking vote. Teresa replies 15 minutes later, and her tone is ice cold. The vote was conducted via email ballot under emergency procedures. All board members were notified and given 48 hours to respond. The results are on file with the management company. I reply, please provide a copy of the email ballot and the results. Wisconsin law requires email votes to be documented in the minutes and made available to homeowners on request. She does not reply. Carl sends me a private message. She is lying. There was no email ballot. I am on the board and I never got one. I forward Carl's message to Megan and ask if he can be a witness. She says yes, absolutely, and that if another board member is willing to testify that Teresa is fabricating votes, that is enough to force the management company to suspend her and open an investigation. I spend the next 2 days gathering everything I have: the minutes, the emails, the parking sticker, the inspection recording, Carl's testimony, and a signed affidavit from Megan confirming that the public records request I filed shows no November meeting. I compile it into a single PDF and send it to the Plow Park Management Company with a formal demand for a hearing and a request that Teresa be removed from enforcement duties pending investigation. The management company replies the next morning, "Your hearing is scheduled for February 10th at 7 p.m. at the clubhouse. All parties will be notified." Teresa replies to the same thread 10 minutes later, "I look forward to presenting the full record of your violations and the board's authority to enforce them. You should bring an attorney." That is when I know she is scared. She would not tell me to bring an attorney if she thought she had the upper hand. She is trying to intimidate me into backing down, but it is too late. I already have the timeline, I already have Carl's testimony, and I already have proof that she fabricated the November vote. But I do not tell her that. I reply with one line, "I will see you at the hearing." What Teresa does not know is that I have one more piece of evidence I have not revealed yet. A week ago I filed a second public records request, this time asking for all emails sent by board members in November and December. The management company is required to provide them within 10 business days, and the deadline is February 8th, 2 days before the hearing. I am betting that somewhere in those emails, Teresa admitted the vote did not happen, or she pressured another board member to go along with her fake enforcement campaign. If I can find that smoking gun, I can deploy it at the hearing as a timeline so the facts are undeniable even to people who hate drama. The week before the hearing, Teresa ramps up the pressure. I come home from work to find a certified letter taped to my front door. Inside is a notice of violation demanding that I remove the roof tarp within 72 hours or face a lien on my property. The notice includes a breakdown of fees: $500 for the original violation, $50 per day for 18 days of non-compliance, and a $250 administrative fee. The total is $2,150, and the notice says that if I do not pay or remove the tarp, the HOA will file a lien that will include an additional $500 filing fee and a 12% annual interest rate. At the bottom, in small print, it says, "This lien may include a winter enforcement surcharge of $300 to cover enhanced compliance costs during snow season." I read that line 3 times. There is no such thing as a winter enforcement surcharge in the Plow Park covenants. I checked. Teresa is inventing fees now, stacking them on top of fabricated violations, and betting that I will either pay out of fear or that I will not have time to fight it before the hearing. I scan the letter and send it to Megan. She calls me back in under an hour. "This is insane," she says. She is threatening to file a lien based on fees that do not exist in the covenants. If she actually files it, you can sue her personally for abuse of process and get damages. But you need to stop her before she does it, because once it is filed, it goes on your property record and it is a nightmare to clear even if you win. How do I stop her, I ask. You send a cease and desist letter to her and the management company, CC the entire board, and you lay out every single violation of procedure she has committed. You make it clear that if she files the lien, you are going to sue, and you are going to win. That will put the management company on notice, and they will tell her to back off because they do not want the liability. I draft the letter that night and send it the next morning. I list every fabricated vote, every fake fee, every procedural violation, and I attach Carl's affidavit and the minutes. I close with, if any lien is filed based on these fabricated violations, I will file suit against Teresa Robinson personally and against Plowmark Park HOA for abuse of process, harassment, and breach of fiduciary duty. I will also file a complaint with the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions under Chapter 703 of the Wisconsin statutes. This is your final warning. I send it at 9 a.m. By noon, I get a reply from the management company. All enforcement actions against your property are suspended pending the outcome of the hearing. No lien will be filed. I do not hear from Teresa. 2 days later, I receive the second batch of public records. It is a zip file with 43 emails, and I spend an entire evening reading through them. Most of it is routine, vendor quotes, lawn maintenance schedules, budget discussions. But then I find it. An email thread from November 18th, 3 days after Teresa claimed the parking vote happened. The sender is Teresa, and the recipient is another board member named Diana. The email says, I know we did not vote on the parking enforcement rules, but I need to move forward anyway because we are getting complaints. Can you back me up if anyone asks? I will handle the paperwork and make sure it gets added to the minutes retroactively. Diana's reply is one sentence, I am not comfortable with that. We need a real vote. Teresa's reply, fine. I will just say it was an email ballot and handle it myself. No one checks anyway. I read that exchange 5 times. It is everything I need. Teresa admitted in writing that the vote did not happen, that she fabricated the email ballot story, and that she planned to falsify the minutes. I save the email as a PDF, print 2 copies, and add it to my hearing packet. The day before the hearing, Teresa makes one last move. I get a call from a towing company saying they have been contracted by Plowmark Park HOA to remove a vehicle from my driveway that is parked in violation of snow emergency rules. I tell the dispatcher there is no snow emergency, and my car is on my own property. The dispatcher says he is just following the work order and the truck is already on the way. I hang up and call the police non-emergency line. I explain the situation, and the officer says he will send a patrol unit to the address. I go outside and wait. 15 minutes later, a flatbed tow truck pulls up, and Teresa is in the passenger seat. The driver gets out and walks toward my car. I step in front of him and hold up my phone with the city snow emergency map on the screen. There is no active snow emergency, I say. And this is private property. If you hook my car, I will file charges for theft. The driver looks at Teresa, who is climbing out of the truck. She is holding her clipboard and clicking her pen. The work order says this vehicle is in violation, she says. The association has the authority to remove it. I pull out the printed timeline from my packet and hand it to the driver. This is proof that every violation notice issued by Teresa Robinson is based on fabricated votes and fake rules, I say. If you tow my car based on a fraudulent work order, you are going to be named in the lawsuit. The driver reads the first page, then the second. Then he hands it back and walks to the truck. I am not touching this, he says to Teresa. You did not tell me there was a legal dispute. There is no dispute, Teresa shouts. He is in violation and he is obstructing compliance. The driver climbs into the cab and starts the engine. Teresa slams her clipboard against the side of the truck, but he pulls away anyway. She turns to me, and her face is red and twisted with rage. You think you are clever, she says. You think you can embarrass me in front of the board and get away with it. But I have been doing this for 6 years, and I know how to handle people like you. I will make an example out of you so everyone learns. That is the second time she has said that line to me, and I know it is going to come back to haunt her at the hearing. A police cruiser pulls up, and an officer gets out. Teresa immediately switches her tone to sweet and reasonable. "Officer," she says, "this homeowner is refusing to comply with HOA enforcement, and we need assistance removing a vehicle that is blocking snow removal access." The officer looks at me, and I show him the city map and the email from the management company suspending enforcement. He reads it, then looks at Teresa. "Ma'am," he says, "this is a civil matter. If you have a dispute with the homeowner, you need to handle it through the courts. I cannot help you tow a vehicle from private property without a court order." Teresa clicks her pen 6 times fast. "This is unacceptable," she says. "The association has rights, and he is violating them." "Then take it to your hearing," the officer says. He gets back in his cruiser and drives off. Teresa stares at me for a long moment, and I can see her calculating. She knows I have something, but she does not know what. She turns and walks to her car, and as she drives away, she rolls down the window and shouts, "See you tomorrow night." I go inside and finish prepping my packet. I print copies for every board member, plus one for the management company rep. I organize the documents in chronological order, the minutes showing no vote, the fake parking sticker, the November email where Teresa admits fabricating the ballot, Carl's affidavit, the tow truck recording, and the timeline showing that every enforcement action came after I refused to remove the tarp. At the top, I clip a copy of the lien threat letter with the fake winter enforcement surcharge highlighted in yellow. The hearing is held in the Plow Park Clubhouse, a low brick building with a meeting room that smells like old carpet and burnt coffee. I arrive at 6:45, and the room is already half full. Carl is there, sitting in the front row. Megan is there as my witness. A few neighbors I recognize from the email thread are scattered around the room, and I can see them whispering. Teresa is sitting at the front table with 3 other board members and a woman in a blazer who I assume is from the management company. At 7 p.m., the board president, a man named Roger, calls the meeting to order. He reads a statement about the purpose of the hearing, to review enforcement actions taken against my property and to determine whether the violations are valid and the fines are appropriate. He asks Teresa to present her case first. She stands up and walks to a podium with her clipboard. She clicks her pen twice, then starts reading. The homeowner installed an unauthorized roof tarp without architectural approval, she says. He has repeatedly parked in violation of snow emergency rules. He has refused to comply with inspection requests. He has obstructed HOA contractors. And he has sent harassing emails to the board and the management company in an attempt to avoid accountability. She goes on for 10 minutes, listing every alleged violation and reading from her notices. She holds up the plastic evidence bag with the broken snow stake and claims I placed unauthorized markers in the street. She shows photos of my car in the driveway and claims it was blocking snow removal. She reads from the email I sent asking for the November minutes and calls it harassment. When she is done, Roger asks if I want to respond. I stand up and walk to the podium with my packet. I hand a copy to each board member, one to the management company rep and one to Teresa. Then I open my own copy to the first page. I am going to present this as a timeline so the facts are undeniable even to people who hate drama, I say. On November 1st, an ice storm damaged my roof. I contacted a roofer the same day and installed a temporary tarp to prevent interior water damage. That tarp is legal under Wisconsin emergency repair statutes, and the city building inspector signed off on it. On November 7th, Teresa Robinson issued a violation notice demanding I remove the tarp. I responded with the city approval and the state statute. On November 10th, she issued a $500 fine and claimed the tarp required architectural approval under the covenants. I pause and flip to the next page. On November 15th, Teresa sent an email claiming the board voted to implement enhanced winter parking enforcement. I requested a copy of the meeting minutes. The management company provided minutes from October and December, but there is no record of a November 15th meeting. On November 20th, I received a certified letter threatening a lien if I did not remove the tarp. That letter included a fabricated fee called a winter enforcement surcharge, which does not exist in the Plow Park covenants. I flip to the email printout and hold it up. On November 18th, Teresa sent an email to board member Diana saying, and I quote, "I know we did not vote on the parking enforcement rules, but I need to move forward anyway because we are getting complaints. Can you back me up if anyone asks? I will handle the paperwork and make sure it gets added to the minutes retroactively." The room goes silent. I see Roger lean forward and pick up the email copy from his packet. Teresa's face goes white, then red. She clicks her pen once and opens her mouth, but nothing comes out. I continue. Yesterday, Teresa contracted a tow truck to remove my vehicle from my own driveway, claiming it was parked in violation of a snow emergency that does not exist. The tow driver refused to proceed after I showed him proof that the enforcement action was fraudulent. A Madison police officer confirmed that there is no active snow emergency and that this is a civil dispute. I close the packet and look directly at Teresa. Every single violation notice you issued is based on rules that were never voted on, fees that do not exist, and procedures you fabricated. You admitted in writing that you did not have board approval, and you threatened to falsify the minutes to cover it up. You have used your position as fines coordinator to harass me, intimidate me, and attempt to place a lien on my property based on lies. And you did all of this because I refused to remove a legal emergency repair tarp. Roger looks at Teresa. Do you want to respond? She stands up, and her hands are shaking. That email is taken out of context, she says. I was trying to streamline the process so we could respond quickly to neighborhood complaints. The vote happened, it just was not documented properly. Carl stands up from the front row. I am on this board, he says. There was no vote. Teresa sent that email because she wanted to fine him without going through the process, and when I told her we needed a real vote, she ignored me. Teresa turns to glare at Carl, and I see her jaw clench. You were not at the November meeting, she snaps. There was no November meeting, Carl says. We did not have quorum. You canceled it yourself because 2 board members were out of town. The management company rep clears her throat and stands up. Based on the documentation provided, she says, it appears that multiple enforcement actions were taken without proper board approval. That is a violation of both the bylaws and Wisconsin HOA statute. I am recommending that all fines and fees be reversed, that the lien threat be withdrawn, and that Miss Robinson be removed from enforcement duties pending a full investigation. Roger nods. I agree, he says. All enforcement actions against this property are reversed. The fines are voided. Miss Robinson, you are suspended from the Fines and Enforcement Committee effective immediately. We will schedule a special meeting to review your conduct and determine further disciplinary action. Teresa slams her hand on the table. This is ridiculous, she shouts. I was doing my job. I was protecting property values. I was enforcing the rules. You were making up the rules, Roger says, and that is not your job. Teresa grabs her clipboard and her portable printer and storms out of the room. The door slams behind her, and the room erupts in whispers. Roger bangs a gavel and calls for order. Then he looks at me. I apologize on behalf of the board, he says. This should not have happened. We will make sure it does not happen again. The hearing ends 10 minutes later. Carl shakes my hand and says he is sorry he did not speak up sooner. Megan gives me a hug and says I did great. A couple of neighbors stop me on the way out and thank me for standing up to Teresa. One of them says she has been terrified of getting a violation notice for months, and now she feels like she can breathe again. I drive home in the dark, and I feel the tension draining out of my shoulders for the first time in weeks. My phone buzzes with an email from the management company. It is a formal notice that all fines have been reversed, The lien threat has been withdrawn, and I will receive a refund check for any payments I made. At the bottom it says, the board has voted to censure Teresa Robinson in public, strip her committee powers, and ban her from contacting homeowners outside official meetings. 2 days later, I get a voicemail from Teresa. Her voice is tight and cold. "You think you won," she says, "but I will make sure everyone knows what you did. I will make sure this neighborhood understands that you are a troublemaker who does not respect the rules." I save the voicemail and forward it to the management company with a note, "I believe this violates the board's order banning her from contacting homeowners. Please address this immediately." The management company replies, "We have notified Ms. Robinson that any further contact with you will result in removal from the board and potential legal action." I do not hear from her again. 3 weeks later, the roof repair is finally completed. I take down the tarp, and the shingles look perfect. The roofer says the tarp saved me from at least $10,000 in interior damage, and he is surprised the HOA tried to make me remove it. I tell him the story, and he just shakes his head and says he has seen it 100 times. At the next board meeting, Roger announces that Teresa has resigned from the board effective immediately. He does not give details, but he says the board is implementing new policies to prevent enforcement abuse and to ensure that all violations are reviewed by the full board before fines are issued. Carl is appointed as the new fines coordinator, and he says his first priority is to review every enforcement action from the last year and reverse anything that was not properly approved. The neighborhood feels different now. People wave when I drive by. A couple of neighbors stop to chat when I am shoveling my driveway. One of them says she got a refund check for a fine Teresa issued last summer, and she is thrilled. Another says she is thinking about running for the board in the next election because she wants to make sure what happened to me does not happen to anyone else. I still see Teresa sometimes driving through the neighborhood. She does not look at me. She does not wave. She just keeps driving, and I am fine with that. The spring thaw comes early, and by mid-March the snow is gone and the streets are clear. I plant flowers in the front yard and repaint the mailbox, and everything feels normal again. My mental health is better. I am sleeping through the night. I am not dreading coming home anymore. I get a letter from the management company in April. It says the board has completed its investigation and found that Teresa violated multiple bylaws and state statutes during her time as fines coordinator. The letter includes a formal apology, a breakdown of the reversed fines, and a check for $750 to cover the legal research and document costs I incurred during the dispute. At the bottom it says, the board has updated the enforcement policies to require board approval for any fine over $100, and all fines must be supported by documented votes and meeting minutes. Thank you for bringing these issues to our attention. I deposit the check and file the letter with the rest of my HOA documents. I do not think I will ever need them again, but I keep them just in case. I run into Carl at the mailbox cluster one afternoon in May, and he tells me that 2 more homeowners have come forward with stories about Teresa fabricating violations and threatening liens. The board is working with the management company to issue refunds and apologies, and they are considering filing a complaint with the state to make sure Teresa does not get elected to another HOA board somewhere else. I hope they do, I say. She should not be in a position of power ever again. Carl agrees, and then he tells me something that makes me laugh. Apparently, during the final board meeting where Teresa resigned, Roger played the voicemail she left me on the clubhouse speakers. He wanted to make sure the entire board heard her violating the contact ban so there would be no question about removing her. Teresa tried to argue that the voicemail was private, and Roger just pointed at the speaker and said, "If you are going to threaten a homeowner, at least have the decency to do it in person." That image stays with me. Teresa, standing in the front of the room, listening to her own words played back on speaker, realizing that her own arrogance and vindictiveness had destroyed her credibility in front of everyone. It is exactly the kind of karma she deserved. The neighborhood settles into summer, and life goes back to normal. I work my shifts at the clinic, I mow the lawn, I grill on the back patio. I do not think about the HOA much anymore. The rules are reasonable, the board is fair, and Carl is doing a good job keeping enforcement transparent and consistent. I hear through the neighborhood grapevine that Teresa moved out in June. Someone said she sold her house and moved to a condo in a different part of town, somewhere without an HOA. I do not know if that is true, but I hope it is. I hope she learned something from all of this. I hope she understands that you cannot bully people just because you have a title and a clipboard. But mostly, I just hope she stays far away from Plow Park. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate you being here.